from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The realities of ranch life as the saga of number 88 continues to a heartbreaking end. Big market moves.
I think that's what's really helping to give this market some strength and some push.
See what's pushing wheat prices higher and new concerns about the spread of avian flu.
The frustrating part of that one, it just won't go away.
The latest as officials confirm new cases right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when blood, sweat, and tears meet rain, wind, and sun. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Tyne Morgan coming to you from our studios in Kansas City. Clinton has the day off. Well, for the first time, we are learning H5N1 has been detected in meat. It came from a culled dairy cow. USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service making the announcement saying it didn't make its way into the food chain. The agency saying viral particles of the virus were detected in tissue samples from one cow last Wednesday. The cow was part of the normal testing of 96 dairy cows. They say the remaining 95 tested negative for the virus, and no meat from any of the cows entered the food supply. APHIS says it is now working to trace back where the cattle came from, including notifying the producer in order to get more information. USDA officials continue to assert the risk of the virus spreading among humans is low, and so far it doesn't appear to have slowed down beef demand as we enter the summer grilling season.
I don't think it ever has or will get bad, and unless there's some big surprises there. The frustrating part of that one, it just won't go away, and so from that context, I think it's one that we will have to deal with, certainly for this summer's grilling season, potentially longer. I don't, because it's a 7 to 10 days deal, the cow's fine. I don't think it's a game changer, but it's just one of those things that's constantly there.
Oh, when something like this comes up, there's always concerns, but I would say it's a relatively calm concern. I think we have the reputation as the safest supply in the world. Food safety extremely important. So I think the work that APHIS and FSIS are doing here domestically has been phenomenal. We got to make sure that FAS is also involved in telling that story to our trading partners and telling it what it is, and more importantly, what it isn't. Because it's not a food safety issue globally. It is an animal health issue. And we have to explain what it is and what it isn't. And I think they're doing a very nice job collaborating across agency and telling our story.
Hallstrom tells me there have been a couple exporting partners pushing back, including Colombia, imposing restrictions on 9 states with cases. But he says that decision is not science-based.
I think the industry has done a great job of conveying to consumers the product is safe. I think USDA has done a phenomenal job trying to figure out what they were dealing with. When we knew we had some cows impacted in the panhandle of southern Kansas, but we didn't know, so the time it took to get it identified, will we learn more in a really short period of time? Sure. But the fact that it's not carrying over in the product, of all the evidence we have so far, it's not having a lasting impact on the cows.
USDA also confirming infections in 5 additional herds, 3 in South Dakota and 2 in Colorado, raising the U.S. total to 64 herds in those 9 states. Another story we're following, almost 24 people are dead from a tornado-spawning storm system that ripped across the U.S. during the holiday weekend. The storm's hitting Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Kentucky, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without electricity. As Laura AgDay reports, an early season heat wave is adding to the misery.
Parts of the central U.S. once again in the crosshairs of savage, destructive storms. Torrential rain and powerful winds whipped through the Dallas, Texas area early Tuesday, bringing wind gusts over 80 miles an hour and large hail to some areas. The widespread damage to some homes and businesses on par with that suffered over the past weekend from deadly tornadoes across that same region.
I have never prayed so hard in my whole life.
Texas was among the hardest hit with several fatalities and many survivors still reeling from other difficult losses.
We've lost cows, we've lost pigs, we lost one of our dogs. My husband's lost his horse.
Tuesday's new wave of storms also striking on primary election day in Texas, leaving more than a third of one county's polling places in the dark.
I signed a declaration of disaster as we have hundreds of thousands of customers without power.
More than 750,000 customers as tracked by poweroutage.us, about half of those in Dallas County.
This, unfortunately, will be a multi-day power outage situation.
Critical infrastructure like hospitals and emergency response services will be prioritized for service before residential homes. The severe weather threat continues for Texas and parts of Oklahoma and Louisiana into the evening hours. Another 9 million people face a similar risk in the High Plains Wednesday, from northern Colorado up into North Dakota. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Laura Aguirre.
Those dangerous storms took the life of a Colorado rancher and 34 head of cattle. The Associated Press reports 51-year-old Mike Morgan was feeding his cattle from a trailer when he was struck by lightning. They say the lightning bolt struck on a wide open pasture outside the town of Rand. That's about 80 miles northwest of Denver. The strike also knocked down about 100 head of cattle that were near the trailer. 34 perished. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office says Morgan died on the scene. It's reported on average 270 people are struck by lightning in the U.S. each year. Only about 10% are killed. Also a concern right now in southern states, sweltering heat. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht joins us now with an update.
Yeah, that's really where we're turning. Remember last week we talked about a ridge of high pressure developing down to the south and to the southeast, scorching temperatures when you take a look at the calendar. Again, this is the temperatures. You factor in that Gulf of Mexico humidity, and that heat index is up around 110 degrees. Again, the heat index. Actual temperatures 110 in Brownsville. That's coming up later on this afternoon. And much like what we talked about in the middle of summer, you don't get a lot of relief overnight, especially when that humidity is elevated, only down to the 70s in New Orleans, 70 in Jacksonville, 78 in Miami. Slightly cooler, that pocket of cooler, drier air. It's going to take temperatures down into the 40s. Bit of a chill in the air, back into Michigan, but also into New York State, and then up here towards the Dakotas. Again, more of the 40s. But high temperatures return 100 degrees in San Antonio, 87 in Dallas, 81 in Memphis, with some cooler temperatures back into the Midwest. And check out these beautiful looking strawberries. As Stephanie Smith says, her family has grown strawberries for 44 years in southern Michigan. She says they started picking them on Friday with the earliest they've ever had berries ready. Looks like you better hurry out and get them. I'll have more in your forecast coming up.
USDA released a new crop progress report on Tuesday following the Memorial Day holiday. It reports 83% of the corn crop is now planted, a point ahead of the 5-year average, and it says 58% of the crop has emerged. That is right on par with average. Soybeans continuing to run ahead, 68% now planted, 5 points ahead of average, with 39% of the crop now up, 3 points ahead of the average pace. Cotton planting also running ahead with 59% planted, 2 points ahead of the 5-year average. And we're getting our first ratings of the season with cotton, with 60% of the crop rated good to excellent. That is 12 points better than this time last year. Well, wheat starting the week off hot as global production concerns continue. AgDay's Michelle Rook joining us now. Michelle, wheat has rallied well off the March lows.
Yeah, that's right. All 3 wheat classes made new highs for the move to start the week. U.S. wheat markets have been following Matif wheat in Europe, which has been also hitting new highs. Now, the rally has been tied to global wheat production concerns, but in particular in the Black Sea and Russia. Russia's ICAR agricultural consultancy cut its forecast for the wheat crop another 2 million metric tons to 81.5 million and lowered exports to 44 million. Sovicon lowered its Russian estimate 3.6 million to 82 million. Crops in Russia have been damaged by spring frost and drought.
We've had the two big private analysts out of Russia come in and lower production. Once again, ICAR and Sovicon both lowered production. Pretty good numbers as far as Russia's concerned. Still worried about the drought in the Black Sea region, as we saw Ukraine's numbers also lowered. So I think that's what's really helping to give this market some strength and some push.
However, Ukraine wheat production has also been lowered to 19 million metric tons due to frost and drought, and the EU crop has had too much rain. Plus, there are still concerns in the U.S., including new reports of possible quality issues in the U.S. plains with hard red winter wheat.
We do have our own right now, some of our own concerns, and we're starting to get some reports of replant needed up here in the northern plains. Of course, with the dry conditions and the harvest moving along in the southern plains, we have supply becoming available, but just how much is going to be kind of a question.
July Kansas City wheat hit a high of $7.46 Tuesday and has rallied $2 from the low scored on March 6th. July Chicago wheat hit a high of $7.20, which was $1.80 off the lows. Martinson says fund traders have covered a big share of their short position in all three exchanges. Prices are running into chart resistance, and farmers selling, though, and need continued crop concerns to sustain the rally. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
Thanks, Michelle. Still ahead, Michelle will have more on the big market moves in wheat and in cattle coming up in Markets Now. And later, not the news we had hoped for with number 88, but her story is one that soon won't be forgotten in the country. Bayer is looking to beef up genome editing in vegetables. The company saying it's working with South Korean biotech company to develop genome-edited tomato varieties. These varieties would be nutritionally enhanced with vitamin D3. In a release, the company saying vitamin D deficiency is a widespread issue, particularly in countries where winter sunlight is limited, which can lead to health issues. Part of the agreement is also to develop seeds for a broader variety of tomato products using genome editing. It's also working with U.S. ag tech startup Pairwise on that company's gene editing mustard greens. Well, wheat climbed higher and corn and soybeans pushed lower on Tuesday. Michelle Rook is back with what it all means in Markets Now.
Grain markets ending mixed on Tuesday. Dwayne Bussey is back with us. And Dwayne, let's talk about the wheat market, some new highs for the move. And can we keep going in that market, do you think?
Boy, that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, obviously, we're not trading our fundamentals as much as we're trading the global wheat prices. If the European markets are up sharply overnight, it seems like our night trade follows it as well. The oligos tend to follow it, go higher. And then during the day, I think we get farmers selling and pulls it back down. I know I'm telling my producers up here in spring wheat area to sell this new crop spring wheat on this rally, because overall, Michelle, we still have plenty of wheat here. We're not going to run out of it.
Right. And we've got to see some exports maybe come over to the U.S. to keep this going, don't we?
Right. We are hearing a lot of stories from private forecasters of Russia's wheat crop getting smaller and smaller. And, as we do that, everyone tends to outdo themselves and get a smaller number, and we rally the market, maybe rightfully so, but it doesn't mean anything if we don't export some more wheat out of here domestically.
What do you think about soybeans setting back on Tuesday along with the meal market? So, is that maybe a little bit bigger acre talk or confirmation of China business that hasn't showed up, or what?
I think combination of both. Yeah. Over the weekend, it was somewhat wet in the Midwest. So there's a little bit of talk of maybe a couple less corn acres, maybe that 1 million more soybean acres. And I can buy into that. And then this 1250 resistance has been there too, right? We struggle with that on a chart. And like you said, all the talk last week was that China's in here buying some more old crop beans from us. We still don't have confirmation of that.
What about the corn market? Did corn just follow soybeans and meal, or what's going on in that corn market right now?
Probably just a big follower. I think it followed wheat up overnight, and then it followed soybeans down later in the day here today. Struggling. I think it needs a new bullish story if it's really going to make another leg higher here. And I don't have that story right now.
What about the switch of acres away from, corn to soybeans or PP acres or whatever?
Yeah, I guess I'm in the camp that I think USDA was too low on their acre estimate on March 31st. So even if we are losing some acres to prevent plant, that doesn't mean you guaranteed less corn acres on June 30th when we update those acres. So I'm not making that adjustment yet myself.
It's Dwayne Bussey, Bolt Marketing. We'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
For marketing advice, call Bolt Marketing, a futures and options brokerage firm.
So a little bit ago, we talked about the heat and the humidity. We switched things over to look at the severe storm risk coming up on Wednesday. A few severe storms will be possible back up in the Dakotas, back down into Colorado, but also into Texas as well. The higher those temperatures go, the more of a cap sits on the atmosphere. And that cap can reduce thunderstorm activity, but it can also, if you break that cap, enhance it as well, whether that is a large hail or even heavy downpours. So again, the severe weather risk opens up for portions of the United States coming up on Wednesday. The overall precipitation forecast keeps some showers around, but not looking at any major systems working across the United States as we go through the next 7 days or so. There's going to be some rain out there. With that next system and that heat, that humidity, we're going to draw some moisture back up here towards the north, but actually trying to dry out a little bit the next 7 days into the Midwest and the Southeast, as again, more shallow energy comes in and across the United States. And speaking of which, here's a look at the flooding potential on Wednesday into Oklahoma, Texas. Notice this area also had some paint on it regarding severe weather potential, about 5 to 15. They don't necessarily overlap, but where we see the severe weather, we're not going to see much in the way of significant flooding. Where we don't see severe weather, that's where we could see some flooding. That includes the panhandle of Texas, also into Oklahoma. You get a little bit more substantial, 15 to 40% in Oklahoma, Texas, back up here to the north. That's coming up on Thursday. So overall, that jet stream coming up on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, that ridge continues to build. So we're starting to look at the next kind of significant heat wave early in the season coming through the United States Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. And that is going to set up a bit of a blocking pattern. So the heat is going to be around with that ridging. Any low pressure system or trough that tries to develop, rather than going through the ridge, it may try to find a weakness or two. Chances are it's going to be moving more to the north rather than expanding across the United States. That's a long way of saying expect a heat in the forecast starting next Monday and Tuesday, not only for the South, but through a good portion of the United States. We'll start off looking at Massachusetts. Partly cloudy, high around 77 degrees, low of 57. Connecticut got some evening thunderstorms, high about 76, low of 56. And finally, Omaha, Nebraska, sunny, high of 78.
It looks like U.S. pork exports are off to a great start. Some good news about an industry that's faced some tough times recently. That's next. The U.S. meat industry gathered in Kansas City last week for the annual U.S. Meat Export Federation Spring Conference, celebrating some good news. Randy Sprong, a pork producer and U.S. MEF chair, said there was a sense of optimism among attendees about what's ahead for the rest of 2024. I spoke to Sprong while he was in Kansas City, and he says pork producers are profitable again after what he called a very difficult 12 to 14 months. But he also noted a strong start to the year for exports.
On the pork side here, the first 3 months of the year, you're up 6% in volume, 7% in value. Just that continual trend of, increasing exports, increasing value back to the farm within the United States.
In his remarks to attendees, Sprunk voiced a need to prioritize market access, saying new markets are needed, and one way is through lowering tariffs. China is planning to request an investigation into the possible dumping of some pork products from the European Union. That report comes from China's state-backed Global Times. The report did not go into details. Reuters reports China imported a total of 1.55 million metric tons of pork last year, with the EU accounting for more than half of that total. The report comes as the EU is conducting investigations into some imports from China in an effort to protect homegrown manufacturing. Coming up, remembering a cow whose story went around the world. A tribute to number 88 and what we all learned in the country. Well, a sad update on a story we've been following for months. Number 88, the cow that had become a social media sensation, has died. Clay Scott, who's a Kansas farmer and rancher, sharing this update on social media, saying, quote, "Our girl passed away." Number 88's story started in early April when Scott shared a video of 88 referencing the eclipse and her size. She quickly gained a worldwide following, and Scott used 88's pregnancy journey as a way to educate her captivated audience about raising cattle and farming. We spoke to Scott a few weeks ago, and he was very transparent about how concerned he was with number 88's size, but said they were keeping a close eye, even doing what they could to limit her weight gain. When she went into labor last week, Scott posted an update explaining the high-risk pregnancy and that a vet was with her the entire time. Number 88 lost her calf during birth, but number 88 seemed to be recovering well. And on Monday, though, Scott shared the news she had passed away. A reminder of the realities of raising cattle. Scott knew the world was watching, and just a tragic ending for a cow that touched so many. Definitely a tough day on the ranch. All right, that's all the time we have this morning. Thank you so much for watching. For all of us at AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan. Have a great day in farm country.